Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillah. Hi guys. Welcome to the next episode on a Ramadan series here. And today we are discussing on how to fast in a Muslim minority country. Yeah, but before we begin, for those who came to the series last 2 days ago, you already know who is Saifur Rahman. But for those who are new here, I will just quickly go through his profile
One
again.
again, I say that.
Okay, so for those who are new here, Saifur Rahman is an Islamic educator and life coach teaching under the style of the Alchemist. Educated in both Singapore's Raffles Institution and Raffles Junior College, he's an international Fulbright Scholar of Law and Religious Studies, specializing in the monotheistic faith, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and taught at the Faculty of Religious Studies and the Faculty of Law in the United States. Being in the USA for a few years, Saifur Rahman has a wealth of experience living among non-Muslims and explaining Islam to his community. Previously, he was also the court manager of the Sharia Court of Singapore, an executive imam of a local mosque, a managing partner and practicing lawyer of a law firm, and he was a business owner of a travel company called the Alchemy of Travel. Currently, he's a registrar of conversion at the Muslim Converts Association of Singapore, Darul Akam. Yeah, so that is his background. But more importantly, he was also the first person who I spoke to when I came to Darul Akam to find out about Islam. So today we are honored to have him on our show, and let's hear from Mr. Saifur Rahman on how to be living in a Muslim minority country.
Assalamualaikum, everyone. This question is like throwing me into the pit. Like I have no idea what your question is. It's just like open-ended. How do you fast in a Muslim minority country? Well, Singapore is a Muslim minority country, so that's how you do it. But maybe to add value, I might want to share my experience while I was living in the US. I remember when I first flew there, it was nearly the end of summer, so our Ramadan was, roughly around summer periods. While you fast about 12 to 13 hours here in Singapore, we fast about 15 to 16 hours in a day.
Wow.
But what makes it worse was I live in what it is called the Mile High City. We are literally 1 mile above sea level, which is about 1,600 meters above sea level. So the air is very thin, it's very crisp. I used to run in Singapore quite a fair bit, maybe an hour or so. But when I ran over there in my town called Boulder in Colorado, for 10 minutes, I thought I had asthma. I couldn't breathe, because the air was too thin. And so that makes the fasting a little bit more difficult because not only is the hours longer, but the air is thin, so you feel weaker, less oxygen, and definitely a lot more thirsty. Yeah, so it was a bit of a challenge, and I must tell you that my first year there, when I just landed, I landed 1 week before, less than a week after I landed, it was Ramadan. So in the first 2-3 days, it was a challenge, and I didn't make it all the way through. I have to break my fast because I was not feeling well because of the environment. But you pick up, like I said in the last session, your body adjusts. The oxygen intake became more comfortable, and then I cope. Alhamdulillah. But there's something really amazing that I realized that was, I think, the most beautiful. In Singapore, we are fasting amongst friends, their family members, their Muslim friends, colleagues, that we find, some kind of support. But I was living in the second whitest state in America. I was the rare few brown people that I know, and nobody, and you must remember when I was in the States at that time, it was around the period of September 11, so there was a bit of a hostility against Muslims, and nobody knew that I was a Muslim. And I had a choice whether I should fast or not. And if I don't, no one would know. No one would castigate me like you saw on Mothership 2 days ago over the weekend. You saw the clip? Or Storm? I can remember. Yeah, some Jabi were eating at a...
Oh, I saw.
Yeah.
I saw.
So nothing of that sort will happen to me. No one knows that I need to fast. And no one knows that I need to pray. No one knows I need to do anything Islamic at all, because it's not something that in the culture of the Americans that we speak about our faith, right? But in that environment, I must tell you that it is the closest I felt with God. The experience of being all alone, the only Muslim in the city. I mean, there are a couple, but at the time I didn't know who they were. And that experience of being alone is really something that enhances the intimacy that you have with God, because you have a real choice of not fasting. It's so easy to not fast. It's so easy to not do whatever you need to do as a Muslim, because no one does it and no one knows that you need to do it anyway. But then, because your consciousness of God becomes more real as compared to living in a Muslim country, or or in a place like Singapore where there are a lot of Muslims who understand what it means to be a Muslim, what you need to do, what you cannot do. So the experience of experiencing God is a bit more real. And so you fast. And when you fast, and it was longer than your usual time when you fast in Singapore, it makes the whole ibadah, the whole sacrifice, a little bit more personal. And the whole thing is very heartfelt, and you really feel closer to God, mashallah. I mean, the feeling can't be described unless and until you're really all alone out there in the world, and then you're doing all these things, going through all of it all by yourself. Yeah, so that's the beautiful experience that I went through.
Wow. Just curious, like what were you there for, like work, or were you there?
I was there to study. In the graduate studies, yeah. And then eventually work. So yeah. So it's quite a fair bit of time.
Do you meet any Muslims there? Like during that?
Initially, no. Like I said, there is the second whitest state in the whole of the US. And so I must tell you that one of our American hobby is to watch American football. And we have a massive football stadium in school stadium, but it's bigger than National Stadium. Our school stadium, we have 3 stadiums. Okay, wow. The stadium is 120,000 capacity, so it's massive. And I usually go with a group of buddies. And one day, one of my buddies, his dad flew all the way from San Francisco because the team was playing, and then so he bought the VIP seat, and so we were staying at our own usual space, and so we were separated. And during halftime, he came to meet me all across the stadium, and he said, "Dude, how do you find me?" He said it was easy. It was all white and blonde, and then one brown person there in the middle of nowhere. So that must be you. So that was how white and how alone I was at first. There weren't many. Eventually, I get to know a couple of Muslims, but we were not that close because there weren't many Asian Muslims. There were a couple of Middle Eastern Muslims on a scholarship. I taught some of them. But there were not many of them. Yeah.
So when you were there, you were teaching what subject?
I was teaching Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Sharia law. Yeah, a couple of other subjects as well. Yeah. But I come from Singapore, and I was plonked into this situation, and then I sat down one day and I decided to think, look, I'm kind of like all alone, and that was like post September 11. It was kind of a bit of a difficult time actually. So I sat down and I thought, like, what should I do to facilitate my stay, to make it more comfortable and to make others more comfortable with me being the brown guy in the city. So I observed and I see what's going on, and then I realized one thing. I feel that whenever we Muslims travel to a place, which is a non-Muslim place, we somehow, by assumption, we expect other people to kind of know what we are and who we are, what we do and what we don't do. And I think that assumption sort of like keep us apart from the majority of the community, and then we seem to be exclusive, and and all the negative things starts to fall upon us. So I decided that, well, I will reach out to my fellow neighbors, colleagues, friends, and share with them who I am, what faith I belong to, what are the things that I need to do, my prayer, my diet, things that I can't do that they like to do, that sort of thing, being typical American. So I start off with my roommate, and then my neighbors, my good friends, eventually my students. I mean, it's kind of like a norm that we don't actually share with the public what our faith is over there. It's kind of a culture. So, but amongst close friends, I begin to slowly explain to them, and it's amazing from what they see on the news about September 11 and the Muslims and the terrorists or whatever fundamentalists, and then they meet this guy from Singapore who sits down and cook for them. So the thing is this: American food are very bland. Everything is just salt and pepper. So I go NTUC and bought those spices and all that, and I cook nasi goreng. And once I cook and they start knocking the door, hey, what is that smell? And then it's okay, come, let's eat. So once in a while, I do that. Actually, maybe twice every month, I invited friends over and cook. I never knew how to cook back in Singapore, but over there I just like anyhow cook. As long as there's something more than salt and pepper, it's going to be nice. So over dinner, we always talk about stuff, talk about life. So they get to know me as a Muslim. So the outcome, to cut the whole story short, the result of this sort of investment, or this reaching out, this explanation to people who knew Islam only through the media, is this. One of the tradition of being American is to take road trips. And so on one of those occasions, we went on a road trip all the way down the West Coast, beautiful, amazing, Highway 1 along San Francisco. So we were driving, and then suddenly my friend said, okay, we got to stop now. Then I said, why? Well, isn't it your prayer time? They're not Muslims, but they were taking care of my prayer time. And I'm the Muslim guy, and I was thinking I can jamak kasar because I'm on a long road trip and it's far from home. And they were like, no, you have to pray now. You cannot wait. Otherwise we don't know when we have a good availability of a place to stop for you to pray. So I felt that was really amazing. That was the outcome of my sort of investment in the way that I explained Islam to people who only knew about Islam through television and all the negativity that was going on at the time. Another example would be we will go to these road trips, and then we will have to stop for food, and we will stop at a drive-through, and then they will just go inside, and then they say, okay, we can't eat here. And I say, why not? It's cool, it's burger, aircon, Coke, the Muslim guy, They say, no, there's no meat that you can eat here. They're all pork, and then even their meat is not halal. So I was like, wow, whatever that I've been telling them about Islam, my diet, they were paying attention, and now they're taking care of me. So this is a blessing in which, I feel that if we as Muslims, when we go to another place, a new place, we begin to build bonds of friendship, and then we begin to explain who we are, what we do, what we don't do. You begin to realize that actually the world is a very acceptable place. But if we go to a place and we assume that you should know what I don't do, you should know why I have a beard, we should know why I have to pray, why I cannot eat pork, then the friction is always going to be there because people don't understand. So that's my personal experience.
Yeah. Got a couple of questions now.
Sure.
First one, how come as a Muslim, right, you were teaching Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in the faculty there? Why did they select you or like, yeah.
Yeah.
Why the Christians listen to you? I'm curious.
Why the well, kind of a fair question though. So, like I said, you remember one of the ethics of teaching is that we don't, as particularly when we teach a religion, we don't tell them what particular faith they belong to. Okay, that's number one. So they never knew what I was. Some of them even thought I was a Christian because of the spirituality aspect of things which I speak about in class most of the time. Or even Buddhist, but none would imagine I'm a Muslim because, well, the Muslims that we know, that we saw on TV, it's not like this one, So they never put this side by side. So yeah. Anyway, before I came in the US, you don't have to be a Muslim to teach Islam. You don't have to be a Christian to teach Christianity. As long as you are good at the subject, then you teach it. Prior to me coming there, a Jew was teaching us, not me though, Islam. Memorizing the text of the Quran more than I thought at that time I memorized. So it's kind of a challenge for me. Like, it's kind of embarrassing. The Jew has memorized the Quran more than I have. So. When I suppose the students see me teaching Christianity and learning things that they never knew about their own faith, they never really question what faith I belong to. They just accept it as an academic, learning.
Oh.
It was fun.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I think there's America is like a very open society, lah.
Yeah. I mean, I had traditional learnings while I was back in Singapore, in halakha, in circles, in madrasa, and then I went there, so it gives you a different facet of looking at faith and even your own religion, teaching you how to look at Islam as an insider and looking at Islam from an outside point of view. And so you begin to understand a little bit more about how people view things and view you and how you should start viewing yourself. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit different from some people that you know. Yeah.
Another question is, there's no mosque in your area, right? That in the US at that point.
No. So I was living in the second most whitest state, and there's no mosque in our area. And if you want to go to the mosque, you have to go to the next city.
So when you were fasting, like you do a iftar, how do you explain to your new friends, like, oh, I'm fasting and iftar, then did they buy you food or not? I'm curious.
Okay, so iftar and Hari Raya was sad. I will tell you, it's sad. So iftar, you kind of like eat sweets in the library when it's time to break a fast. You're in the library anyway, or in the office, and that's what you do. It's nothing special. But what is more sad is Hari Raya. How you remember pre-COVID days, you wear nice clothing, something, and whatever. Even your songkok have that shiny thing at the top, and then you go to the mosque, and then you listen to the sermon, and then you start hugging everybody else and wish everybody Idul Fitri, and then people come to your house, and this goes on for 1 month, right? But over there, I remember it was in the morning. I went to class, and then my friend said, "Hey, he's a Singaporean Chinese," and said, "Hey, today Hari Raya, right?" Yeah. So how you celebrate? Library lah. What else? There's nothing. Like no one knew it was my celebration day. No one knew it was Hari Raya. There's no lontong. There's no ketupat. There's no kuih. Nothing. It was the same sandwich and the same coffee at the library that we have. And so my friend said, "Oh, so sad." Then he looked at me like he wants to cry for me. He said, "Hey, let me belanja you lunch after this. Let's meet up at 12, and then we just go for lunch." And that's kind of about it, how we celebrate Idul Fitri. But you must also realize something that I begin to realize eventually that is not that kind of experience doesn't only occur when I was in a non-Muslim majority country. I mean, even if you celebrate, you perform your Umrah, you celebrate Idul Fitri or Idul Adha in Makkah or Medina, you go to the mosque, and then there'll be some people that had wish you Hari Raya or whatever, hug you. That's it. And they go home and they sleep. It's not It's not like the Malay culture here where, you come home, you have more lontong, and then you have people visiting you, and then you visit other people, and this goes on and on and on until the end of the day, and then you just pingsan, It doesn't happen in most parts of the world, actually. So we are kind of blessed that we are able to celebrate, but sometimes I think we celebrate a bit too much. Yeah.
Talking about food, right?
Yeah.
If you guys haven't tried Saiful Rahman's lemak cili padi, it's very power. I tried before.
Maybe in my next career, I might open up a shop, a restaurant.
Yeah. Okay, so Elias, do you have anything to ask before I move on?
Talking about food, right? Like, I'm also curious. Like, how's the food experience there as a Muslim? Is it easy to find halal food over there, or like what's the workaround? If not,
unfortunately, I think I did allude to this 2 days ago when we were on the topic of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, our body is very flexible. So I adjusted my rice as a staple to sandwiches and to salads, and American stuff, like cookies, biscuits, that kind of thing, soup, that kind of thing. So sometimes when we go out of town, we'll buy our meat in bulks and we store it in the freezer, so we could sort of spread it over a couple of weeks. But it is not something that can happen on a regular basis. So the only other option would be to eat seafood. But the place where I live, we are kind of landlocked in the middle of it's kind of in the Midwest, so there's no sea. So they fly in salmons for sushi in the Japanese restaurants, and those were really expensive. Like one sushi is $3-4. Sushi, I'm not talking about fish,
Oh.
Half of it, more than half of it is rice anyway. So that as an option, but that's not practical as a student because it's expensive. So the other option that Islam enables us is to eat kosher meat. Kosher meat are meat that are slaughtered in the Jewish way, and in circumstances where it is not possible to consume or to find halal food, then kosher is an alternative. Yeah. So it's like here when you go to NTC, you find one section is pork, the other section is halal section, right? So over there, it is so common that one whole section is kosher products. So that's where I go to if I want to eat meat. But by and large, generally, my diet has sort of been more of other things rather than meat because the option is not so available.
So you got used to eating salad also.
Yeah, but coming back to Singapore, salads are very, very, very expensive, even if you make them yourself. So I went back to rice. Yeah. So I was telling you that I was living in the second white estate.
Mm-hmm.
So as fate would have it, I have godparents, alhamdulillah. Just kind of like me, and then they kind of adopt me, and one of them lives in Maine. Maine is then the whitest state in the whole of the US. So I don't live in an area where I see brown people at all. So whenever it's during Christmas break, we kind of go back to Maine. You've heard of Maine lobster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So usually once I land at the airport or at the train station, the first thing I do is have the lobster before I go home. That's sort of my tradition. So anyway, in Maine, being the whitest state, if I stay there for 2 weeks, I will not find another colored person except myself. So when I go there, everybody will be like, "Whoa, brown man," and so alhamdulillah, I get to hang around with a certain group of people within the society, and so they sort of have Christmas parties 1 or 2 weeks even before Christmas. So every night, we will have these social gatherings in one of the houses. Maine is so cold. Like, if you take the train, the Amtrak, have you seen the Polar Express, the cartoon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, it's like that. So it's all
Oh.
white. I mean, by the time I go there, December, usually it's all white. So we'll sit in the fireplace and we eat and we talk. And because I'm the brown guy and because I'm the Muslim guy, they are not familiar with me. So I literally, for every night when I go through all these dining parties, I actually have a minimum of 45 minutes to 1 hour of tutorial on what is Islam, who are Muslims. So sometimes I even talk about Christianity to them, and they are Christians, So it becomes a very fruitful dinner outing rather than just gossiping whenever I'm in town. So they kind of look forward to me coming back every other year, and, at that time especially. And I look forward to sharing my faith in a very non-formal way, in a very non-judgmental way, to them. And hopefully that sort of like broaden the horizon, open up to tell them that there are, whatever they see on TV is not exactly what Islam is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Curious, did anyone like during your time there embrace Islam after they met you? I'm curious.
Generally, no. There is one or two stories, but I think they're a bit too personal. They might be watching, so I'm not sure whether it's comfortable with me talking about it. But yeah, there are people who became Muslims, mashallah.
MashaAllah.
Allah, yes.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Okay, Brother Ilyas, any other questions on this part?
No, I think the story is very wonderful. I also learned a lot. Like, what can we do even if next time, right, I were to travel to to the US or somewhere in the West. But over there, right, like, do you manage to travel to any other states where there's like bigger Muslim community or a mosque, or do you just stay in that city?
I travel a lot. I would say that amongst my friends, even my American friends, I travel more than they did. Whenever there is a short break, I travel. I think I travel more of the US states more than any of my friends ever did. But I mean, I also travel beyond the US, and it depends on at what phase of my life I'm traveling. Sometimes at certain phases of my life when I travel, particularly in the last 10 years, I always look for a Muslim community. I think those who have traveled with me can attest to that. We may go to a place that everybody goes, but what we do when we travel is slightly different. So, for example, when I went to Bosnia Herzegovina, we organized a conference with the Bosnian Islamic scholars there to share about Islam from their history and our history. And when we were in Jordan, we went to a female orphanage home. They said they've never seen any travel agency does this before. When we went to Russia, we went to the Hafiz Center for the blind kids who memorize the Quran. MashaAllah, you will cry when you see them. At such a young age, they are, they cannot see, sometimes they cannot hear, but they were reading the Quran from the Braille Quran. That was the first time I saw a Braille Quran, and they were just sitting there under the corridor memorizing, or in a group during the class they were memorizing. MashaAllah, it's a sight to behold. When Allah takes something from them, Allah gives something back in return. And I think what Allah gave them in terms of the Quran is much more than what Allah took from them. SubhanAllah. So we do this sort of things because I think particularly in these times, it is important for us to reconnect. It is important for us as Muslims to be united. So wherever we go, I try to reconnect with some Muslim organization. In Spain, we always in close connection with this group that does the translations of the Quran. They're sort of like the Mu'is of Spain, although I mean they don't have an official designation there. They were the one who certified halal the halal wines that you have in Singapore, it's all done by them. So when we go there, we pray together. They cook food for us, and we ate home cooked meal. We give tazkirah to each other. So it was amazing. And the brotherhood, despite wherever country you go to, we're all united under this banner of Islam, under this banner of Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Then once you say that, that's it. We're all brothers and sisters.
One family.
It's one big huge family. And so to be cliquish and to be exclusive is something that is not Islamic. So I feel that if you don't reach out and if you don't share, if you don't let people know what you are, who Islam is, then where is the da'wah? Kuntum khaira ummatin ukhrijat linnas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. You are the best created amongst mankind. And I always understood it in this way. When Allah says we are the best created amongst mankind, why? Because He says we enjoin goodness, we prohibit others from committing sins. Ta'muruna bil ma'ruf tanhauna 'anil munkar. And then wa tu'minuna billah. And then we believe in Allah. Right? Not that it's not important that it's put on the third level, but our duty once the Prophet ﷺ has passed away and there's no other prophets that's going to be appointed, our duty then becomes the person who then performs this role of da'wah. It is something that is demanded from us. And so if we reach out, people begin to understand us, then the negativity against Muslims will be reduced.
Inshallah. Yeah. Talking about traveling, right? Ustaz, can you share with us some traveling tips? Okay, because you previously owned a travel company, maybe share with us also what is your favorite country that you visited and the experience of what a musafir is.
What's my favorite country? Who's my favorite prophet? However, I'm a weird guy. I do not have a favorite prophet. Neither do I have a favorite country. All countries are beautiful, and all countries have special and amazing things to teach me and inspires me. You want me to name them or what?
No. I believe everyone is different on the experience that you went to, and they are unique on its own.
Yeah. So for you, I'm sure your favorite country is Spain.
And that's the only country I've been with you.
Because that's where he proposed to Shah.
Oh, I saw the video.
Organized by me.
Organized by you. Yes.
Amra at the Gardens of the Lions. Subhanallah, it's such a beautiful and romantic place. So I mean, you would have that kind of affinity. I mean, I think Spain is one of the countries that I've been to the most. I don't know, maybe 10 times, because it is a treasure vault in which you find that in the past it was the evidence of where Muslims, Christians, and Jews were living together harmoniously, working together, and because they were peaceful together, they were building civilizations, and they were leaving legacies for future civilizations to carry on the good work that they did. And so, if you study the history beyond the churches, you will see a mosque, because for every nice church, that was the minaret of a mosque. I like it because particularly in the Andalusian part of Spain, because I see all these three monotheistic religion living together in peace and building a world that probably how Allah intended it to be, right? Before things fall apart. So if you don't go there and if you don't enliven the history, at least at this point, then it will just die off as future generations, not understanding it, will just forget, and then take Spain as a purely Christian country in that case, for example. And Bosnia is also another beautiful, amazing experience because...
Wait, before we go Bosnia.
Okay.
I remember this Masjid Cordoba we went.
Cordoba,
Masjid Cordoba, right? And there was this mimbar, and the top was some Arabic words. Do you remember what were they in the Quran? I can't remember, but I remember something unique.
I remember the mosquitoes' most beautiful part, despite the church being smack right in the center of it, is still the mimbar. It's not the mimbar, mihrab.
Mihrab. Okay.
Right? It's the mihrab. And if you go there, you will see that even the non-Muslims would be mesmerized by that sight. I mean, the photos will not do justice to it, you know, and you will just get so emotional when you see this is the remnant of the original mihrab of the mosque that has now been changed into a cathedral. I remember the verse, but if I were to tell you, you went with me and you even forgot, you took photos and you forgot. So by telling you, you will still forget. So I will tell you that that verse is taken from Surah Ar-Rahman and is describing Allah's character of being the eternal one.
Mm.
Wow.
Okay, I know where already. I go and find.
You can find.
I go find.
It is between verse 1 to verse 20. Not too much to find.
Oh,
And then you tell your viewers what is that verse.
okay, inshallah.
Hey, you do homework.
Okay. So
now
Bosnia, yes.
viewers, oh my god, what is that verse? So you keep that excited.
I think that time you showed me before, like that time I think you're going through your album, right? And you showed me that photo before.
Yeah, but I forgot the verse. Mm-hmm.
We went through it at the mosque even.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
so sad you forgot. Okay, never mind your homework. Next. Move on.
Next, Bosnia, right? You were talking about Bosnia?
Oh yeah, Bosnia. So Bosnia is another Islamic history that is a place that Muslims should pay attention to, because it is a place where it was totally destroyed during the Civil War. There were some Islamic elements in there that maybe you should read up. But I think what is the most important thing for me in Bosnia is it gives me a lesson of the sort of a modern era. How they rise from the ashes within a very short time and then rebuild themselves. And, you know, even in that short time, I mean, particularly for me, they were able to produce Islamic scholars that were, by that time, were traveling around the world, teaching in all these universities all around the world about Islamic fiqh in Muslim minority country and so on and so forth. You know, and then it begs the question: we who have you know, existed longer than their period in which they rebound, have not produced scholars like that, and those who are in the Muslim world are not even traveling, teaching the level in which they were teaching. You know, so what is it about them that gives them the spirit, the drive to rise up? You know, so that's one thing. Another thing is, of course, it's a very, very amazingly beautiful place, beautiful nature, waterfall, gardens. The people are beautiful. The food is amazing. So there's really nothing to complain. So like I said, I have no favorite place. All places are my favorite. Each one of them has their own special intrinsic value that they inspire me. So, Allah says, travel through the world and see the miracles that He has, given to us. So, should not be any special place. Just one place, yeah.
What if the question is rephrased instead of a favorite place, right? What if like the most memorable experience that you have or that you had when you were traveling that you can remember?
I have lived a blessed life and a full life. I've been to many places, and they all hold beautiful memories. I mean, I give you an example. When I was in Jordan, I stayed overnight in a Bedouin camp, and I was laying down after midnight, and then I was lying down in the desert, and I saw shooting stars. Like in 1 hour, I
Wow.
saw 42 shooting stars. Yeah, and then I don't know. I mean, when you were in Bhutan, non-Muslim country, but you see the gentleness of the people, the warmth that they show, knowing that you can only eat vegetarian food. That was something heartwarming as well in a cold place, up in the clouds. In Uzbekistan, how the third and fourth generation are rising up, from the time when religion was not allowed, and then how the mothers trying hard to earn a living, and then the children are starting to learn Islam again, and then all these places have their own amazing history, and so I can't tell you which is my favorite. Every one of them is, to me, is a blessing which Allah has given me to experience. So yeah.
Wow. But
I mean,
when you travel to all these countries, right?
Yeah.
Like, was language a barrier? Because I think you traveled to so many places.
Well, language is not really a barrier because you've always, I mean, before I go, I always make sure that I have someone to connect with. So the most common lingua franca would be English. But, you'd be surprised that people know Malay, Indonesian. At the bottom line, especially Muslims, we can always go back to Arabic. But despite all of these languages, there's one language that everybody understands, the language of love. So if you speak through your heart, even if I don't understand what you're saying, people will get it. And so, because you're not going there to do some harm to anyone, and no one, if you don't do harm to them, would want to do harm to you. Generally, that's the basic principle. So if you smile, they will smile, and if you just gesture about like this, then they give you food, and you hug your fellow brothers and or sisters. And so, the language of love transcends those kind of languages that sort of like prohibit us from communicating.
Yeah. Wow, it's beautiful, and I hope one day I'll get to experience that.
Inshallah. I mean, in these times, we can't travel, and sometimes when we say we want to travel, I do feel that sometimes people like to show off with it. So we need to be very careful with that, because they are people whom, when we speak about traveling, may not have the ability to travel. So when we talk about travel, that's why, as a person who can afford to travel physically, when you travel, you must go beyond the physical travel. Traveling is not just about going to the touristy places, taking photos, put on Instagram, and I've been here, wish you were here, that sort of thing. But to learn about the history of the place, to learn about why the people are, in a way, behaving the way that they behave, why the food is cooked in that manner, although it's sort of the same. There's something that everybody has is like, for example, biryani. Biryani is kind of like a staple in all, even non-Muslim countries, but it's called differently in different countries, cooked slightly differently with a little bit of different spices, but actually at the bottom line is kind of biryani. So that's something, and especially if you travel to the Caucasus, or you travel to Middle Eastern, everybody has their own bread. Everybody cooks bread, but it's different kind of bread, different fluffiness, but it's bread. So we are all different, but we're all the same. So the language should not differentiate us, the gender, the color of the skin. Like I mentioned the other time, inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, is only our code consciousness, is only our taqwa. So even when we travel, Allah says, Surah Al-Hajj, أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, have you not traveled to the earth? فَتَكُونَ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا, that you have hearts in which you think, in which you contemplate, in which you ponder, in which you learn lessons from, or أَذَانُ يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا, or hearing in which you hear. What do you learn when you travel? So this is something that we should imbibe into our habit if we travel. If we can travel physically, we travel, look at the history, learn, and avoid whatever that the mistakes that we make, and adapt to whatever that we can adapt that is good for us. But if we cannot travel, or we speak with people who can't travel, then traveling is not just a physical travel. It's an intellectual travel, reading the books, right? I mean, when I was younger, I mean, I didn't really travel like the way I travel now, but I read books of the places that I want to travel. So I felt that I traveled, moral travel. Like a good example will be this Ramadan, where we travel from maybe primary 1 to primary 2 to primary 3 to primary 4. In terms of our habits, in terms of our speech, in terms of our eating etiquettes, and this sort of thing, right? There's also the spiritual travel. There is also a good example that we can develop during the month of Ramadan, right? We usually read the Quran maybe once a month, but nowadays we read it every day. Not only we read it, we try to understand it, and then we try to memorize it, and then we wake up for tahajjud. The kind of engagement we have to increase our consciousness with Allah becomes more steep. So these are the kind of travel that if we cannot travel physically, this is the kind of travel we should talk about. This is the kind of travel that we should share with others, because usually, during COVID, I find that many people just keep on complaining, I miss travel. Just like Ramadan. Ramadan never leaves you. You left Ramadan. If you say you miss travel, that means you have not been traveling inwardly. There's a lot more depth to travel inwardly than the kind of travel that you travel physically. But if you travel physically, don't just collect Instagram stories. Don't just collect. I've picked my what box? What do you call it? Your
checkbox.
Your what?
Bucket list.
Your bucket list, yeah. Bucket list tick. I mean, that's your bucket list. That's not my bucket list, so I'm not interested in it. But what have you learned that I can benefit from your traveling to, for example, to Timbuktu, for example? Those are more deeper questions that we must begin to engage.
Well, when you're speaking about that, right? As humans, we like to travel outwards instead of inwards, right? Like, I was also I saw an article like maybe a few months ago or a few weeks ago that we humans, right? We know more about the outer space than we know about the ocean. Like people, we always travel outwards into the space, but not much sea exploration. So I think that's very true.
Why we like to travel outside? Because the only requirement that we need is money. We have money, we travel anywhere. That's it. That's all you need. But to travel inside is scary. People are scared because they may not like what they find when they see themselves for who they are. Or it becomes such a difficult challenge to overcome, to better yourselves if you see how low you are, that sort of thing. So people just say, let's just go to Paris instead.
But anyways, while I was reading the comment, right, I think there's a few comments, I think, from your past students that they said that they miss attending your lectures. There's quite a few.
The comments were like now?
I think 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
Well, you can see the comments. I can
can.
Sorry.
Let's read the comments. It's quite interesting here. Okay. Let me see. There are some people from Bangladesh who are tuned in. Some from Netherlands. Brother Iskandar, previously we interviewed him, is also here.
He's from
the Netherlands.
Netherlands, okay.
Yeah.
There's someone from Tajik.
Yeah, where's what? Tajik.
Tajik. Oh,
Uzbek.
It's the oldest
Uzbek.
city of Uzbekistan or something.
Yeah, Uzbekistan. Yes. Now I can see. I'm Tajik. We have two older Tajik cities of Bukhara and Samarkand. I've been to both cities, Bukhara and Samarkand. MashaAllah, they are beautiful and very historical. They currently belong to Uzbekistan. Bukhara is where Sahih al-Bukhari. Yes, I've been to the maqam of Imam Bukhari, and I've been to the maqam of Imam Naqshbandi as well when I was there, inshallah.
Oh.
So, hi, welcome. Yeah.
I remember attending Ustaz's lecture at Masjid Rabita.
Rabita.
Yeah.
The fact that he made it enjoyable and explains well in both Malay and English. Well, you see, the thing is this. I understand when you go for classes, it's usually Maghrib or Isha, right? And prior to that, you had a full day of work from 9 to 5, and I'm sure you're tired. I'm sure you're hungry. If I'm in your shoe, it's going to be a challenge for me to go to classes. I want to just shower and lay in bed after whole days of work. So I think part of the pedagogy of teaching, especially at that kind of time, would be to be able to capture your attention by making it a little bit more interesting. And I think if you put in a bit of effort, you begin to realize that to make things interesting is to make things real. So once I make it relevant to myself, you find it relevant for yourself, and so you'll find it, enjoyable, I suppose. Because Islam is not. See, the thing is, I mean, without saying too much, would be, Islam is not a religion of the books. I mean, okay, that's wrong. Islam is not a book where it's just meant to be read and to be followed. Islam is alive, and it's not just standing up here verbalizing the book. Whatever book that you're teaching, is not just that. It's to make that book comes alive, bringing the content and then making it comes alive so that you find it relevant and you can apply in your life. And I think that's a very important concept of teaching.
Okay, another one, I think from the US, I think we slaughtered our own sheep or cow at the ranch when we're studying there in Davis, California.
Yeah, you are fortunate. You have a ranch and you have animals. I live in a townhouse. And no space for these things. So, but I'm sure, I mean, if I'm rich enough, mashallah, if I were to have a ranch, I don't need to go to a butcher shop. Everything I need is in my land. I can plant things, so that's something that you can aspire to. Now you have your animals, and then on the other side, you do your plants, and so all you need is there. Inshallah, self-sustaining, and that's one of the trick of surviving in the last days. Inshallah.
Next question: do you have a channel?
No, I don't have a channel, and I'm not ashamed. So do not elevate me. I don't have a channel. I do have an Instagram. It's called Alchemy of Hippiness. I don't know. Just find Alchemy of Hippie, HIPPIENESS. Why it's called hippiness? Because it's a flip to Imam Ghazali's book Alchemy of Happiness. As I said, I was living in USA, and I was living in a place called Boulder, Colorado, which is a hippie place. Not hippie in the typical sense of the word. I know people in San Francisco would not be happy with us, but we are kind of like, we shower every day, we are intellectual, we bathe, we actually have degrees, and we are kind of a clean hippie. So my student then suggested that well, since that's where you come from, so Alchemy of Hippiness, one word. So if you want, find that Instagram, and you'll find some nice quotations every other day. I put it up.
Next question: what's the difference between reading the Bible and the Quran?
Just a discussion for next live session. If you can share the difference, you can share
the Bible.
The next session, not this session. But generally, I don't like to leave questions unanswered, but generally, I think the Quran and the Bible are very, very different things, very different books. How do I say this in a live stream? The Quran is Allah's direct revelation through the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there's no altercation, there's no addition, subtraction. It is as it is. the Word of God. Whereas the Bible is a collection. The Quran talks about the book of Prophet Isa alayhi salam as the Injil, as in the Gospel, and which means the good word. But the Christians call it the Bible, right? So by virtue of the name itself, you ought to know that there's a difference. So the Bible would be a selection and a compilation of only selected Gospels that befits the politics of the time. There's a whole semester's work, so I can't explain it in. Yeah.
Oh yeah, some people from Johor. Yeah,
Johor.
Johor.
Hi, neighbor.
Watching. Yeah.
I'm so sad that we can't travel there. I just want to go there and eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one. Christians in Yorkshire observe Lent. It's like half fasting.
Inshallah,
so-
they will do a full fast. Yeah, inshallah. But then Lent is based on a different kind of principle, whereas fasting is based on a different kind of objective. So, even fasting, there are different things that, sometimes people fast, but it's to keep their figure slim, So in Islam, that's not fast, because the Sharia definition of fasting is that you restrain from eating, drinking, sexual activities, number one, from dawn to dusk, for the sake of Allah. If it is not done for the sake of Allah, then it's not considered as an ibadah. So, but sometimes though, because it all apex roughly, with the same thing, the Abrahamic faith. So the ibadah is sort of the same with a little bit modification in different religions, right? But that sort of like gives you an indication of how we actually all belong to one source, and then down the line, it's like perspectives, and then the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims. But you see that there's the fast that goes on, there's the purification to a certain level to different faith that goes on. So yeah, I mean, they might fast for Lent, but it must be done eventually for the sake of Allah, in order for it to be considered as a fast that is acceptable in Islam. Okay? It can be because also of the history, like I said in the last 2 days. Kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, as Allah has made compulsory fasting to generations that came before you. Right? So Lent would belong to a group of people who historically, in that sense, in the world history sense, that came before the advent of fasting as you know it now. Okay? But like I said, the institution of fasting has existed long, all the way, you can trace it all the way to Nabi Adam alayhi salam. Yeah. Next question.
Next one. No, just there are some people from Perth, Australia.
Yeah. Hi.
Okay,
Well, it's a nice place.
Yeah.
Ramadan from Perth, Australia. Okay, I'm watching from Philippines. Hi. Rose, Elias, and SS. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, lots of love to you, Ustad. Okay, next. It's from the Philippines.
Allah love all of you as well, especially in this month and the last night of Ramadan, inshallah.
Yeah.
Ramadan Mubarak from Philippines, inshallah.
Yeah. All right. So that's all the comments. There are also brothers from India. Yeah. And that's all.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Keep watching Brother Firdaus and his work. He's doing good work. And I think as long as it's something that resonates with you and it touches your heart, it keeps you closer to Allah. Go to people, find friends, find companionship, find instructions from things that makes you be closer to Allah. And that's the most important thing, right? If it brings you further away from Allah and then stopped, there's always other options that you will have. All the way from New York. Hi.
Hi.
My second favorite place after my town. So whenever long break, New York is where I'll go. Anyway.
So we just hit the 1 hour mark. Thank you so much, Ustaz Saifur Rahman, for sharing such a wonderful experience that you had. Such a wealth of knowledge about traveling and the experience as a Muslim in a Muslim minority country.
Wait, can I share one last thing? Which
Yes, definitely. Go ahead.
Is amazing. So when you're traveling, there is this concept of salah called jama' and qasar.
Yeah.
And I think if you're traveling particularly for a good purpose and it's a distance that is the distance is long enough that you can consider combining your prayer, the Zuhur and the Asar and the Maghrib and the Isha. And if it's longer still, you can join and shorten them, and it's called Qasr. So instead of doing 4 Zuhur, 4 Asar, you can do 2 combined. And then Maghrib, 3-2. And this lists the burden of the person who's traveling so much. And this is one of the blessings in Islam. And I mean, if you know this facility that Allah has granted to us, it's amazing. So the point is, do not miss your prayer. Because if you can pray, pray full. If you cannot pray, pray sitting down. If you have to lie down and pray. If you're traveling, also pray. I mean, you see in the Quran, in Surah Al-Imran, when Allah describes, even when they're fighting in the battlefield, on the horse, they were still praying. So what is your reason for not praying? Right? I mean, Islam is so beautiful. It covers everything.
Subhanallah. Yeah. Oh, someone from Brooklyn too. Okay.
Hi, Brooklyn. Yay. Happy town.
There's a lot of Americans here.
Happy town. That's where underground stuff are held. I don't know what these things. My friends tell me all this.
Okay. So just to give you guys a heads up on the next series, it's going to be another interesting thing. Okay. It's the life and experience as a Chinese Muslim Dai by Ishaq Ma. So
do you want to explain to them what is a Da'i?
Dai is somebody who goes out and spread Dawa, right?
Yeah. Okay. Someone who helps to propagate the faith. So Chinese convert, mu'alaf. Right? Good.
Yes.
Experience.
And love from Turkey.
You guys should start doing this because I'm now like, I want to go to Turkey, I want to go here, I want to go there, everywhere. I don't have the money to do all of this.
Ustaz, as a sum up for today's tonight, could you give us like a Dawa together we do with you or something? Like, usually we end with Tasbih Kafara lah and Suratul Asr. Yeah.
Okay, I will make a short dua, which I like.
Yeah.
I will do it in English, and then I do it in Arabic, and then I do it in English. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma ahyina bil iman wa amitna bil iman wa ahshuna bil iman wa adkhilna al-jannata ma'al iman bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma aftah lana abwab al-khair wa abwab al-barakah wa abwab al-ni'mah wa abwab al-quwwah wa abwab al-sihah wa abwab al-salamah wa abwab al-rizq wa abwab al-jannah. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين تقبل الله. So the first one, اللهم أحينا بالإيمان وأمتنا بالإيمان وأحشنا بالإيمان وأدخلنا الجنة مع الإيمان. Ya Allah, please let us live in faith, die in faith, resurrected in faith, and enter paradise in faith. Subhanallah. Next one is Allahumma aftah lana, oh Ya Allah, abwab al-khair, open for us the door of goodness. Wa abwab al-barakah, the doors of blessings. Wa abwab al-na'mah, the doors of blessings. Wa abwab al-quwwah, the doors of strength. Wa abwab al-sihah, the door of health. What else? Sehat wabal. What I read? Sehat wabal. Wabal risk, the doors
Rizki.
of sustenance.
Sustenance.
Wabal Jannah, and the doors to Jannah.
Jannah.
The many doors to Jannah, inshallah. We
Inshallah.
in this last 10 days of Ramadan, Allah will put us and right for us to enter into one of the doors of Jannah, inshallah. Ameen. And then the last one,
Ameen.
Allah may give us success in this world and success in the hereafter, and do not punish us in hellfire. We started,
Ameen.
we end with this one,
Ameen.
inshallah. So in the
Ameen.
last 10 nights, remember this is the time in which Allah released us from the hellfire. So in the last 10 nights is also the night of Lailatul Qadr. So increase in your dua. Allahumma innaka afun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Ya Allah, you love to forgive, therefore forgive me. Right? Keep on repeating this and try to wake up a little bit earlier every morning so that you can perform tahajjud or sunnah tawbah or sunnah syukur, sunnah hajat, whatever it is that you want. Read the Quran a little bit, and then if sahur, and then azan, to sunnah subuh, before subuh, and then do your subuh prayer, and then sit on the prayer mat for a while, memorize the Quran, read the Quran, or do some zikir, or do some aurat, because that's when the angel Mikael is going around giving you extra sustenance for the day. So do not miss any of this. And this is also the time which you will be able to realize whether yesterday was Lailatul Qadr or not. So sit for a while. Don't sleep after your Fajr prayers. Right? So pray to Allah to give you strength so that you can sustain your activity. Make it count in these last 10 nights. But importantly as well, may you meet Lailatul Qadr. And also important that may all the activities that you've been doing in the state of fitrah right now in the month of Ramadan be something that you can continue to perform even beyond Ramadan. Inshallah, Allah gives you another school next year during Ramadan, and may Allah lengthen your life and make your life full and make your life be content with whatever Allah has given you, inshallah. Ameen.
Ameen. Ameen. Jazakallahu khair, Ustad, for sharing tonight. And inshallah, may you all benefit from today's session. And also, inshallah, may we all see all of you in Jannatul Firdaus one day.
Ameen.
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 Thank you. Good night, everyone. See you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.